Well, howdy, welcome back to my channel. So today guys, I'm back in the shop, have a great project for you. It's spring, people are starting to plant, those who love to garden. And so today, for the perfect idea for you to either make for yourself or to sell, is some cedar planters. Now these ones that I'm going to be making today are standard, approximately a cubic foot. That way you can grow anything from tomatoes to peppers, to even as small things as radishes, whatever you want to do. These are completely customizable. I've done bigger ones. I'm going to show you that one later. I just did that one a few days ago for my bell peppers. I made it 3 cubic feet instead, though I could fit 3 bell peppers into it. It's only going to require 2 fence pickets, maybe one more for the trim if you decide to do the trim to make it a little bit more decorative. But today I'm going to be using cedar fence pickets because the reason I use fence pickets instead of just going and buying cedar boards is cedar boards are like $20. The cedar pickets are the exact same thing. They're just fence pickets that are a little bit more rough, but because it's being used as a planter, it doesn't really matter. You get a 6-foot picket for, I think it was like $3.50. So if you get 2 of those, that's $7. Maybe with tax a little bit more. Sell it for, I'd say around $30 to $50, depending on how much detail you put into it. The reason I use cedar and not a pressure treated pine, because obviously the pressure treated pine is cheaper. I don't like having pressure treated stuff touching my garden soil. It just leaches, all the chemicals leach into the soil, and I just personally don't like that. Some people don't mind it. I see a lot of people who use pressure treated pine, so if you don't mind that, then you know obviously it's cheaper to go with that, but I personally like the cedar. I just don't like pressure treated chemicals around my plants. So the basic tools that you're going to need is going to be some sort of saw, whether you have a jigsaw, circular saw, a miter saw, you know, whatever you have. You're going to need a table saw of some sort. You could also do it if you're skilled with a circular saw and you have a straight edge. You could do it with that as well. Not that big of a deal. Use what you have. And then you're going to need some sort of way to fasten the things together. I'm going to be using, personally, a brad nailer and some wood glue. I've built one like a year ago, still standing strong. It's been out in the elements for a very long time. The great thing about cedar is it's naturally weather resistant. It doesn't rot like other woods, it just kind of degrades over time. So you're not gonna get, rotted boards that are soft and things like that. It just gradually kind of disintegrates, I guess. But it takes a while. So that's why no one ever pressure treats cedar, is because it's naturally weather resistant. Without further ado, let me grab the wood, let me grab the tools, we'll get going. So to start up, we're just going to need 8 11-inch boards. Okay, so the basic setup is just going to be making 4 walls, and the 4 walls are going to consist of 2 of these, and they're just going to be stacked on top of one another. Whenever we do the legs are just going to be what holds these 2 together, so you don't have to worry about, fastening them together or anything, no pocket holes, no nothing like that. That's what the legs are going to be for. So now that we have those cut out, let's move on to the legs. For the feet, we're going to need 4 13-inch boards. Now these are going to be ripped down to a certain size, so we'll get into that in a minute, but first let's go ahead and cut those. So for the legs, we're going to need 4 1 1/4 inch boards ripped down, and then we're going to need 4 2-inch boards. So let's go ahead and rip down both of these to size. Okay, so I was wrong. So you only needed 3 13-inch boards. That ended up doing it, which is 3. But that's okay that I cut that because we're going to need that later. But anyway, so how it's going to be built, just like I showed you earlier. So 2 of these sides are going to be done with these, and the shorter ones are just going to be placed flush with the boards. And then you're just going to glue it and nail it. So then the second ones, the ones with the longer ones, are actually going to have a taper off the sides of the edge. As you can see here, it's actually going to be tapered like this because what we're wanting is for the joints to be met up just like that. So let's go ahead and do these first, and then I'll show you how to do this. Okay, so like I said, just the first two are just going to be using the skinnier ones, the 1 1/4 inch, and these, like I said, are just going to be flush with the board. So it's not that hard, so all I do is just take a little bit of wood glue, kind of zigzag it down. So yeah, just make sure it's nice and flush. Okay, so the brad nails that we're going to be using, these are 1 inch brad nails. Make sure they're galvanized so they don't rust over time. And then, just like I said, make sure everything's lined up. You can start with the top board first, or the bottom board, however you want to do it. Okay. Go ahead and pop 3 in each side. That way I know that it's nice and sturdy. Make sure it's pushed up one up to another, because, you know, cedar's not as bad. But when you have like pressure treated pine and stuff, they're gonna shrink because when they pressure treat it, it's wet and it expands with the chemicals, and so it's going to shrink over time once it dries. So just make sure that they're very close, tight together. And just go ahead and nail them. Okay, so now that we have 2 of the sides done, we're going to move on to the next step. So like I was saying, let me grab one of these. Okay, so all you're going to do is just line it up to where it's nice and flush. Okay, alright, so then you're just going to take a pencil and you're just going to mark down all the way through here. So we have it marked. So like I like to do, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, it's very hard to, but you can see the X here and you can see the line. The line that does not have the X on it, so this one right here, is what's going to be attached to this. This right here is what's the difference, you know, making the other one 90-degree angle, so if that makes sense. So anyway, so I'm just going to take the one that's not the X, and that's going to be what's on, just like this. So what you could do is, if you take both of your marked ends, find where the X is, and then this is what I like to do, and then just kind of line it up with your line. Okay, and that way you get it flush, and you know exactly where the line is at all times. So all you're going to do is just put glue on the line that doesn't have the X, just attach it to it, and then just nail it to it. Just like that. Okay, so the final step is just to assemble it. So you'll take one piece of the ones that is tapered, and then you'll take one that is flush, and you'll just prop it up just like that, and then you'll just glue it and nail it, and then you'll have a wall done. So gonna give this thing some glue. Make sure it's a good amount, because again, this is going outside, and you just want to make sure that over time it holds up. You want this to last at least 2 years. Okay, there's a wall. So you just flip it over, take the other one that's flush, and just prop it up against here. Just make sure everything lines up even, and obviously, you know, with wooden fence pickets, let me go ahead and do this. One, they're rough, so if you want to sand this and make it a little bit smoother, you can. It's not that hard to do with an orbital sander. Second thing is, not all of them are the same, so some of them are thinner than others. Some of them are thicker than others. You can see right here, this one was thicker than this board was. It's fine because it's just a planter, and you know, it doesn't. If it bothers you enough, and if you're gonna sell these, I would definitely say to do it, you know, wholeheartedly and diligently and do it right. But I don't think that's gonna make a huge bit of a difference. But if you do want to do it right, just sand it down a little bit to kind of get it a little bit even, more even. But just know that when you're working with this stuff, that it's just not going to be all even, because it's not, you know, professional boards. It's not like it's meant to put up a fence. So. Okay. And the last wall is the one that is tapered. It should just fit perfectly on there, just like that. So go ahead and add glue to both of these sides. That's for the basic assembly. Okay, so what's gonna happen now is, because obviously as of right now, it's not gonna hold any dirt because it's obviously there's nothing to hold it in. So what you're gonna have to do, and this is where that extra board's gonna come in handy. So take what you have left over. So you should have stuff like this left over from ripping down the boards. I still have that extra 13-inch board. I have these pieces right here. This part's not going to really matter how you do it, because again, it's just going to be filled with dirt. No one's going to really pay attention to that. Obviously, you want to make it look good. Don't, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It can be done with scrap wood and stuff like that. Just make sure it's all even and everything looks good. So you can either rip these down. You really just want something that's going to hold. So this is probably too thick. You could use this, but I kind of find that as a waste of wood. You could probably, cut this in half maybe, and you're just gonna stick it down in there, and you're just going to, I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not. You're going to stick it down here, right where this board ends. And you're just gonna stick it down here, glue it, nail it, and then we're gonna add some more of these boards to lay on top of these. And then these don't have to be nailed down. The boards that are going, just don't need to be nailed down. You can if you want to. We're just gonna lay those down. So anyway, I'll show you the process, but anyway, just brief explanation. Okay, so I just tilted it on its side so I can show you what I'm doing. So I just took those leftover pieces that I ripped, that were just left over. I cut them down to 11 inches so they fit in here. And all you're gonna do is make it flush with the back of this, board right here. And then you're just gonna glue it and nail it. And that's all there is to it. And then you're just gonna do the same thing on this side. Okay, so just kind of a visual on the back side. I just nailed this piece to here. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna allow us to put a board in between here and here. 11 inches or not, but basically on the inside of this, being able just to put it on this lip right here. And it just makes the strong. I could just nail it back here, but I think over time, the nails and the glue would start to give away, especially with all the weight of the dirt, and just fall off. So I think that doing it this way is the best way. Okay, so now we got the boards cut. We're just gonna lay them in there, just like that. These should fit pretty flush. I shouldn't have to do anything else to them. Perfect fit. Okay, so what we're gonna need to do now is, like I said, you can either nail these in there if you want to. I typically don't, but if you want to, you can, especially if you're gonna sell them. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make drainage holes. So you can just drill, multiple holes. I would suggest using a bigger bit, maybe something like this. You just make a bunch of different holes through it, and then that way you have drainage holes. Good, as many holes as you may need. You may want to put a few more in there, it's up to you. I think that's good enough, especially for both sides. So next up on this list, so we're gonna end up doing the trim. And I'll show you how to do all that. It's pretty simple. It just makes it look better. So I'll show you what to do. Okay, so for the trim, it's pretty simple. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna want to pick the longest side, because the trim's only gonna be a quarter or an inch and a quarter. You're gonna be able to get it all from one board when you rip it down. So just go ahead and pick the longest side, which is gonna be this one, which is 13 and a quarter. But what you're gonna wanna do, because you don't want it to be completely flush and it's just not gonna look right, so actually go out an extra inch and a quarter. So instead of 13 and a quarter inches that you're gonna wanna cut the piece, you're actually gonna wanna cut it to make the length 14 3/4. Okay, so what you're gonna do here is if you have a laser, then obviously you can tell where to cut it. But if it does not have a laser, then I just like to drop the blade down without turning it on and just see where the blade hits. Wherever the blade hits, that's where you know obviously is where it's gonna cut. So right here you want it on the corner. So just like this. Some mistakes that I've made in the past, as you can see, that I flip it over and I cut it this way. Well, what's going to happen is, what we're wanting is a trapezoid shape, like a very long trapezoid. You can see here where the laser is not going to cause that trapezoid. So just make sure that you do it. So flip it over like that, and then you get your trapezoid shape. Make sure it's on the corner, just like that. Okay, so now that we have them all cut to that exact length, remember that this side is not as long as this side. See, it just sticks way out there, so we're gonna have to cut this to the right size, which is 12 inch. It's exactly a foot. You're gonna want to go in an inch and a quarter more. So it's actually gonna be 13 and a quarter. Is how long you're gonna want 2 of these to be. Okay, so this is where you do the test fit, and you just kind of go and do them all. What you're gonna see back here is gonna be way too long. So we're actually gonna have to cut these a little bit off. And again, like I said, you can always cut more off, but you can't add more. Okay, so after some cutting and all that kind of stuff, trying to refit it, I finally got it to where I want it. Obviously these aren't fastened yet. But I just got it to where I think it looks good. It's, you know, you're gonna have this little lip right here. That's what happens with all of mine. It's just, you know, you can make these thicker if you want to. This is just how I do it. But anyway, so I got it to where I want it, where everything fits, everything actually stays on there. And so all you're gonna do now is just make sure it's all even. Glue the bottom of it underneath here, and then just nail it. So. Well guys, here it is, completely done. Like I said, it's about a cubic foot of soil that's gonna go inside here. It's just perfect. It's perfect for big plants, little plants, whatever you have. It's good for indoor and outdoor. Like I said, I'm gonna show you the one that I've had since last spring, and show you how it's holding up and how it's still going and looking good. And then I'll show you my extended one that I did. But like I said, guys, this is a super simple project. You can make it any size that you want to, and it doesn't cost much, nothing. This planter cost me $9 with the three cedar fence pickets, and I actually have some left over. But anyway, I think that anybody could do these. It's not that difficult. It's definitely a beginner project, I would say. And it's perfect for keeping to do your own garden. It's perfect for selling. Like I said, if you're gonna sell it, I would sand it a little bit just so that way this isn't so rough. Cedar's not really rough and prickly. It's more soft and it's more like a fir, I guess. But still, I'd still just sand it just in case. This is actually from my sister's avocado tree that she's been growing for about 6 months now. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked what you see, please hit that like button. Also, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. But until next time, guys, keep swimming upstream.